Guys, welcome to an early edition of Crypto World Radio. My name's Wabi. We're here with some of the contributors from GMX, and they also have some pretty good insight on all the things that are developing on Arbitrum in general. So I want to welcome you guys. Thank you so much for showing up, and welcome to the stage, Fediger and Jonesy. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you for having us. It's great to be hosted by Because Bitcoin and to get a chance to speak about the project that we've been contributing to.
Yeah, definitely nice to be with you, Wabi. Pleasure to be invited, and I look forward to an interesting discussion.
Awesome, man. All right, let's get started. Snorlax, feel free to join in whenever you want, man. I know you're also a fan of things that are built on Arbitrum, brother. So, all right, man. So, dude, I guess my first opening statement would be, how did you guys come across GMX in general, man? And how's that journey been like?
For me personally, it started pretty much a little bit before GMX launched on Arbitrum. I had just come in contact with a couple of the contributors and been following their work, and I was quite impressed with the general mentality of the developers behind GMX, which seemed to be very no nonsense, keep your head down, build, and let the rest take care of itself. And that appealed to me. Um, and when I saw that they were going to be launching on Arbitrum, which was a blockchain I myself had a fairly optimistic view of, I thought it could do very well in the long term, which is a thesis we've seen play out, of course, over the last year. That was the moment where I thought to myself, okay, this is the right time to get in. And not much later, I wanted to get involved on a more personal level, as I have been running my own communications business for the last 12 years or so. And it seemed like the right moment to step into crypto business-wise as well. And GMX was the one project that I had in mind I would love to contribute to. So that was the origin story for me personally.
Yeah, great question, Robbie. So, for me, it was similar to Jonesy, just about right before things got onto Arbitrum. I got interested in GMX when it was originally just Gambit on Binance Smart Chain. I'm personally a crypto cynic, right? I have a lot of interest in what the space can do, but have seen and kind of been jaded by kind of the failed delivery on promises and scams and kind of over hyping of particular projects or whatnot. Um, but originally, right, Gambit had been around, had some pretty interesting APY mechanics. So I decided to join the Telegram group and was really impressed, similar to Jonesy, by the no nonsense attitude of the developers originally behind it, but also kind of the similarly no nonsense attitude of the community who had a lot of questions about the protocol, a lot of criticisms about the protocol that were very constructive criticisms, and how the team handled that and then also incorporated those criticisms into their development, which I thought was both unique and kind of something I hadn't really seen before in the crypto space at the time. And seeing all of that kind of interaction between the developers and community culminate into the emergence of GMX as we know it today was something that I just thought was very compelling. So I decided to reach out when I realized that the protocol was kind of growing and outpacing the capacity of the current contributors. And so I decided to step up as a community member and contribute myself and contribute to the BD side specifically. So that's where I am at now, and that's how the journey kind of started.
So, given that you guys have been there roughly since the beginning, recently GMX had launched with V2. Can you give us some of the key differences between V1 and also some of the new features that have arrived for V2, and anything else that that users might be able to look forward to?
Yeah, so just to clarify, V2 is still in the works. It is about to be deployed fairly soon, though. We are finishing up last audits with Sherlock Finance. But essentially, there isn't really too much difference in terms of the core product between what it used to be on Gambit and like GMX now. You can kind of think about them as fairly the same concept and product offering. Perpetual and swap decks with a fairly deep liquidity or deeply liquid and composite liquidity pool. And basically, traders are allowed to, trade directly from their wallet, whatever the whitelisted assets are. So at the time with, you know, Binance Smart Chain, when it was Gambit, that was Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance token, and then some stables. We've since expanded to when launching on Arbitrum to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Uniswap token, Chainlink token, and expanded the stablecoin offering. So USDC, Tether, DAI, Frax, and then of course also launched on Avalanche with a similar offering minus Chainlink token and Link token, or excuse me, Chainlink token and Uniswap token. But yeah, users can trade any of those assets directly from their wallet, long or short, up to 30 times. They can also swap, or of course, if they'd like on the supply side, they can provide liquidity by minting GLP, which will then give them exposure to both the composite pool, but also 70% of the chain respective fees that are generated.
And a question for Jim. Oh, go ahead, Jonesy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that and I think Fredegar did quite a good explanation of where we're coming from as a product. Leverage is now possible up to 50x as of a couple of months. That was a DAO decision that was made somewhere over summer and was changed I think 2 months ago or so. So that's a minor correction. But when it comes to the new GMX V2 offering, I think it's true that the essence is the same. We're trying to offer an optimal perp dex, and what we've run into with GLP is that it has certain limitations. Even though it's been quite an effective liquidity model, and we've seen tremendous liquidity being attracted and being quite sticky. And I think GLP is over 500 million at the moment, which is a remarkable success, whichever way you look at it. But there are certain characteristics of the GOP liquidity system that limit what you can do, particularly in terms of what assets you can list, whitelist in this case. And we've been trying to find different ways to improve on that. So the new V2 model will allow for various assets to be listed, additional crypto assets, as well as possible synthetic assets beyond crypto. And one of the major changes is that instead of this multi-asset pool that GOP is, we'll be offering isolated pools. So there will be isolated risk for liquidity providers and more choice in that regard, rather than this multi-asset pool. And for the rest, there are some other additional improvements in GMX V2, which include even more optimized price oracles for perpetual dexes. That's something that I'm expecting you will all hear a lot more about very soon. We should be able to put out an announcement about that in the course of this month. So when it comes to V2, those are two of the main elements: being able to offer a lot more assets and being able to isolate risk and offer isolated pools. So there's more choice for liquidity providers there, and that goes in hand with slightly different trade mechanics. We'll be introducing tiny spreads on these synthetic assets, and there will be a few more optimizations like that. That's at the core. That's what GMX V2 will be introducing.
Jonesy, so does this include integrating with upcoming protocols that are launching later this year, early next year, like Say Network or perhaps Saga, to enhance liquidity across GMX.
Um,
I just got a call, gentlemen. I'm not sure if you heard what I had said, but
yeah, no, no.
go ahead.
You're asking about potentially expanding to other chains, correct?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, yeah. So right now the focus is mostly rolling out V2 and ironing out any wrinkles as that update goes live and gets stress tested by the public. But there is also general appetite for another chain expansion. We have been propositioned by like Polygon, Binance Smart Chain. Um, but one of the main concerns about expanding to a new chain is whether or not that other chain is Ethereum L2, specifically, and if the code base is in Solidity rather than something else. Um, if I had to pick the devs' minds from afar, I'd assume that they would want to keep the code base of the chain that they expand to Solidity, since that's what obviously the original code base is, from Arbitrum. Since it does take a lot more capacity to essentially work on a smart contract ecosystem as complex as GMX onto a different code base entirely. So if all those other chains that you mentioned are Solidity based, then it's something to consider. But that's the first priority is reducing any complexity in terms of transferring the smart contracts over to a new network. There has been some mentions by the community to like maybe expand to like a ZK chain or something like that. But ZK rollups are kind of a bit of ways away from um, any sort of where I understand to be viability. And of course, from what I've also read, there's not too much of a bonus for moving to ZK necessarily. That's just my personal understanding. But again, all that aside, main priority is reducing any kind of complexity when moving over to a new chain based on what kind of code base that chain is on or chain uses. Excuse me.
So if the platform were to have various virtual machines, like Saga also has an EVM, there would be quite a bit of technical difficulty to have like a bridge that could facilitate GMX native assets and the platform itself. Because typically, like with bridging and all that stuff, you're able to bridge assets onto other ecosystems. But you were mentioning that with GMX is a bit more complex. Am I right on the money here, brother?
Um, yeah, generally, like I said, it's a matter of reducing dev capacity when going over to a new network, and um, like you suggested, if there's a different code base to work with, and it takes up dev capacity, but you also brought up another good point, which I didn't mention because I don't think it's necessarily a priority when considering a new chain. But if there is limited bridge capacity as well as limited liquidity for the pairs of tokens that we already allow to be traded, and that's going to be another consideration as well, right? We don't want to go onto another network where there's limited liquidity for, say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, DAI, USDC, or Tether. Or if there is some liquidity, right, we don't want to go into another network where the only bridges to access that network are incredibly risky bridges that might not have been vetted or might not be stress tested or might have vulnerabilities that can be taken advantage of. Right, we want to go into a network that does not also have reliable liquidity, but also has reliable bridges as well.
So lately, there have been many products that are sort of like launching, not sort of, but are launching on GMX, on top of GMX. I'm sorry, like IVXFi, which is like an options AMM platform. Have you guys noticed an uptick internally about many products wanting to build on GMX and asking for suggestions on what they should do? And if you have, what sort of dApps would be launching on GMX that you guys find particularly interesting?
Yeah, that uptick has been very, very noticeable. Lately, we've been approached. To be honest, every week there's probably one or two new protocols that are in some way building on GMX's Lego blocks, and it's actually kind of hard to keep track of all of the different protocols that currently do that. I think we're up to about 40 different ones. Many that focus on vaults, of course, because the GLP model has been such a success, and they try to optimize that either through delta neutral strategies or by further amplifying the yield. There are also a number of lending protocols, both on Arbitrum and Avalanche. There's social trading being attempted by STFX and Perpy, and our own GMX Blueberry Club is launching a similar offering called Puppet that I expect will be launched in the coming months as well. That's their version of social trading. Options protocols, of course, like Dopex and Lyra, who just came onto Arbitrum as well. So there's a great many of them, and we are in touch with virtually all of them because we try to emphasize composability and GMX as very much an ecosystem of interrelated projects building services on these base Lego blocks. So to be honest, it's been amazing to see. There's so much enthusiasm from so many great builders to add even more functionality to what GMX offers, and that's been amazing. It's definitely been very noticeable, and I think it's only picking up the pace even more. I don't expect that will be slowing down anytime soon either.
Josie, I want to touch on what you just said. You had mentioned social trading, and I've seen a couple of platforms, a bit lesser known than STFX, that are trying to be integrated within the DeFi ecosystem. Would you mind going a bit more in detail as far as like how that looks like for the new DeFi user?
Yeah, of course. Social trading is not an area where I have a whole lot of expertise myself, and STFX were the first to really attempt to set this up, and they're still working on finding a perfect product market fit, I believe. But there's definitely some traction there, and I think that DeFi social trading as a vision makes a lot of sense. Um, Perpy protocol is offering something similar with a slightly different way of setting up their trades. STFX is very much about single short-term trades, and Perpy focuses a little bit more on I think vaults that turn over and that are a bit less limited in duration. But as for Puppet, I am not yet entirely sure what their approach to social trading is entirely like, but I'm eager to see how they're going to make that work because I think the builders behind the GMX Blueberry Club team have proven themselves. So I think it's a bit of a race to see which protocol gets that right. You know, we've seen social trading be quite successful on centralized exchanges, and I think in a sense it's only a matter of time before it also picks up more in the DeFi segment because the transparency that DeFi offers and you know, you see that with GMX already that the more successful traders their wallets get noticed. People start following their wallets, trying to tag along or be early to good trades. That type of imitation is, I think, a very natural phenomenon, and it suits DeFi quite well for there to be an easier way to follow wallets you think are doing well and that somehow facilitate you tagging along on their trade. So I'm interested to see how that develops further in the coming months. I think it's an interesting segment for sure.
Cool,
Yeah,
man.
and if I could say a little bit more about that, being on the BD side of contributors. So in general, regarding the increased integrations, I mean, pretty much since I started, helping out the project, my main priority was looking for any kind of synergies between GMX and any viable products, as well as kind of what would be in our interest at the time of the current life cycle of the product. So like when I first joined, right, the first kind of priority was building up liquidity. So in my mind, that meant looking for projects that can build on top of GLP specifically, right? Integrate GLP into their kind of project or their product offerings. And to me, that was like a very natural fit because for those who are familiar with GLP, it has a pretty competitive APR, which to me meant that any project that did a pretty good job of integrating GLP could essentially offer that same competitive APR to other users, while also essentially maybe scraping some of that off the top for themselves, and make everyone happy. So the protocol integrating could generate some revenue for themselves while still offering their users competitive or exposure to that competitive APR. So originally that meant working with way back in the day of Arbitrum, kind of like those own forks when those are still around, because right, own forks had the whole DAO treasury model. And right, who doesn't want an actual yield bearing um price hedged asset in their treasury, right? In my mind, GLP would have been a great, and still is, I think, a great kind of testament to both um, the DAO treasury model, right, for whoever is still attempting those and would have used GLP, and GLP itself kind of, proving the theory, right? Eventually, those partnerships develop into some more complex products like delta neutral vaults. So giving, users enhanced yields on top of their GLP already by delta hedging, the GLP exposure, and you know, providing some of that more enhanced yield. Then we saw things like auto compounder vaults, so users would be able to get their GLP into the a vault, and then the yield from that GLP would go to buy more GLP. And I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with the magic of compounding, right? So that was a very compelling product iteration that we saw with GLP. Eventually, we saw the things like Vesta Finance, right, allow users to collateralize their GLP and borrow against it while still maintaining exposure to their rewards. And then, Abracadabra kind of jumping in and allowing users to do something similar, but then using like 50% of the yield to pay back the loan. So then, like with GLP, you could essentially take out a self-paying loan, which is a very compelling use case. And so yeah, the product space in the ecosystem has definitely grown as other projects have kind of reached out to either integrate us or to just work with us in general. Another kind of not too talked about integration that we've seen are swap aggregators, since swaps are another aspect of the GMX product offering and what GLP is capable of. A bunch of swap aggregators have integrated with us, and essentially, anytime someone needs to trade with size, those aggregators end up pretty much routing through GMX, because we have, when it comes to large swap sizes, pretty much the best swap offering. And then to talk more about the SocialFi aspect, yeah, as Jonesy said, STFX was essentially the first to really get it done right. And I think there's a lot of potential for what SocialFi has to bring. So SCFX basically allows traders to partially take on kind of the role of a fund manager, kind of. I don't want to use too much of technical language, right, for obvious reasons, but that's essentially what's going on, which I think is a neat perspective, right? So if like you think you're a pretty good trader, you also have the opportunity to trade to share that trade with others, and then make a little bit of money while doing that, not just on the basis of trading, but on the basis of offering that opportunity to others. And there are the likes of other projects in the works that we've been speaking to, projects like A Vaults, if you guys are familiar, who have a different aspect. They're more of a SocialFi on the kind of like the query side, meaning like you can look up positions based on certain things, and if you want, essentially copy trade it. So this both kind of opens up a lot of opportunity for people who aren't regular traders, as well as people who are trading, right? Who are regular traders. It gives them a chance to kind of accumulate and develop social capital, right? As they gain legitimacy for making, winning trades, and right, they also kind of have the opportunity to build on top of that capacity as well. So there's a lot of really cool things going on, and what we can now kind of understand as the GMX ecosystem.
Ferdiger, one thing that I wanted to touch on is mobile integration. Given that GMX is pretty much one of the largest platforms with TVL on Arbitrum, and just Ethereum in general, I wanted to ask you, how far do you think we are from that ultimate mobile integration experience? Most users that are going to come across DeFi or Web3, whatever you want to call it, over the next couple of years, they're gonna want to be on mobile as much as possible. And I wanted to know, like, your insights being on the biz dev side of things. Are there any developments regarding that end?
Yeah, there actually are. The thing is though, right, and it's kind of funny. So a lot of what we're seeing are wallet like mobile wallet apps with integrations, meaning, if you have this particular wallet app on your mobile device, what they most likely have done is created kind of like a smoothly integrated kind of wallet native front end for GMX. So there are a bit of those apps already, but the other side of it is because crypto derivatives are heavily regulated in certain geographies. If you are in that particular geography, you're most likely not going to see that app available on the App Store for obvious reasons. Or if you do have that particular app already, you're not going to see or be able to access the wallet native um, GMX front end again for reasons related to restricted geographies based on how crypto derivatives might be regulated in your respective area.
And my next question is for Jonesy. I'm curious to know when synthetics would be live and what sort of synthetics could be launching on top of GMX.
Yeah, so let me start with the first part. Um, the synthetics contract have already gone through a couple of audits, and we're now in the final audit, which we expect the results of in estimated about 2 weeks or so. Um, I assume that there will be a few last issues to address, finalize, optimize. So towards the end of March, most of the synthetics contracts will be finalized, and I expect therefore that early April will be the time when we launch. And as for the second part of your question, what synthetics can be made available? Um, I think for the initial phase, we will certainly be looking at everybody's favorite altcoins, to keep it simple. So those crypto coins that have significant volume on the chains that we're active on, and that people are sufficiently interested in providing liquidity for, as well as trading. Um, that will be the number one. So you can expect, say, the top 10 altcoins that we currently aren't able to offer trading for through GLP to be available via synthetics. And once that has been achieved, and once it's clear that everything is working smoothly and any final kinks have been remedied, optimized, then we can start to look further as the DAO in terms of what else we would like to offer.
Awesome, man. And on that note, can you guys tell us a little bit more about the GMX Blueberry Club?
Yeah, so GMX Blueberry Club is a community run project. Some community members, um, it burns and XM essentially decided, hey, why not create, a pretty neat, NFT collection, dedicated to the GMX space and community. So they came up with Blueberry Club, which is a 10,000 NFT collection of some unique blueberries. But not just that. What I think makes Blueberry, GMX Blueberry Club, and essentially the GBC labs kind of unique is that, unlike what I've seen from at least other NFT projects, one, it's actively developed, which means that they're constantly adding new features. So one of the features already kind of native to GBCs is the fact that you can buy what they call lab items, and items are essentially attachments or customizations that you can make to your NFT that are then translated on chain as well. So some of those have been like a GLP T-shirt, which is a unique lab item. Another one has been Hawaiian shirts, which are really neat for your GBC. Other things have been, um, coordinated with other projects. So, for instance, when Castle Finance started to kind of get involved with the GMX space, GBC did like a neat Knight's armor set for GBC. So for those who were quick enough to the whitelist, you could get essentially a neat kind of a full plate armor set for your GBC NFT. And what this has allowed for is both the continued customization, excuse me, of the same GBC. So, right, it's still the unique NFT serial, right, that you have, but also on top of that, right, it's further made unique by whatever particular lab items that you've customized into the NFT. So I like to think of these as dynamic NFTs. They still keep their unique serial, but they're also able, right, to be further upgraded and customized by users over time as they get more involved with the GBC space and interact with the various lab items. Additionally, this has also created, right, a kind of additional NFT market for GBCs where users are able to trade these limited release um, upgrades or attachments, right, for NFTs. So like if you didn't get a chance to say get like the cigar upgrade, right, if you think cigars are classy and look nice, um, the GBC lab was really nice enough for the community to create one of those. So if you're like, oh, I like cigars, and I like my NFT having a cigar because that's the aesthetic that I want to kind of portray. But you missed the whitelist. You can essentially, right, buy that cigar or lab item from another user, or if you were someone who bought it, right, but you're like, you know what, I want something else instead, right, you can then sell that lab item as well to others. Additionally, from what I understand, GBC is probably one of the few, if only, NFT projects that has an actively managed treasury. So essentially, part of what the GBC Labs did with the income or the funds that were raised from the community, not just the whitelist, but the initial sale of GBC, which I believe was minted at 0.03 ETH, was they used it to buy a combination of GMX, GLP, both on Arbitrum and Avalanche. So I think right now they have almost, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jonesy, but I guess to play safe, I'll say at least 400,000 in the treasury, which is actively earning 20% plus APR across the board, and they're constantly compounding those gains. And I think what they're doing now is they've recently had a trading competition. So that's one of the other aspects of GBC, right? Is if you have an NFT, you get essentially exclusive access to their specific trading platform, which allows you to trade a small airdropped amount from that treasury. So, right, like I said, that treasury is yield bearing. If you have a GBC, you kind of get some exposure to that treasury relative to how many GBCs you have. They airdrop you some of the funds earned from that treasury, and then you can essentially leverage trade it on their platform directly, exclusively, right? If you have access to that, or you get access exclusively if you have that GBC. And essentially because it's kind of integrated directly into the GMX platform in a really neat way. They are able to actually access through smart contract interaction the kind of hidden right 100 times leverage. So if you want to be really degen, buy a GBC, trade with the GBC trading platform, and if you're feeling lucky, go full send on 100 times on a trade, and you can essentially flip what is NFT treasury provided funds 100 times and make a pretty profitable trade if you're, like I said, you're good at it and feeling lucky. And then right now they're actually running a trading competition with a community raised prize pot. So if you like trading, you like NFTs, you like being degen, go out there, get yourself a GBC. You'll get exposure to that treasury, like I said, and with the funds from that treasury, you'll be able to trade up to 100 times. And they've got some other neat things in the works. They themselves actually have a copy trading platform that will be coming out soon called Puppet Trading. Again, exclusive to GBC holders only. So yeah, there's a lot of perks coming out for people who hold blueberries. I'm not sure if I missed anything. If I had, Jonesy, let the people know.
No, I think you've been quite exhaustive, Fred, and you're exactly right. I think you can actually see the treasury on chain. Everything is, of course, transparently on chain. So if you go to blueberry.club, you can click through to their treasury, and it's around 2.4 million now, earning a good yield, and they've done very well in that regard,
Definitely
managing
undershot
that
that, man.
cleverly. And as you mentioned, there are some interesting trading competitions that they're constantly organizing, and they have big brains behind it and serious aspirations, and they've been working hard on Puppet as a socialfied trading platform. So it's way more than your average NFT collection, and that's what I really like to see from these guys. They've been pushing the limits from the beginning, with the lab that allows for this customization of your NFTs, which I thought was already quite a remarkable step. And now they just put the bar even higher and keep delivering. So it's been lovely to work with those guys.
And so you guys are good brains all around, man. I love it. This is awesome. So where can people find more information about all things going on, GMX related?
Yeah, that's a good question. Uh, to be honest, following us on Twitter is always a good start because that's where most of the ecosystem news is disseminated. We make sure to amplify any new projects that build on us as soon as we have a good feeling about them and have connected with their contributors. So that's usually where you can learn about these, as well as what's coming up with GMX itself. And of course, our Telegram channel is quite bustling and has a community of well, pretty insightful characters who are welcoming. So that's also definitely worth joining if you want to keep up with the Blueberry ecosystem and occasionally be exposed to a little bit of alpha here and there from some of our sharper contributors who keep an eye on everything that's going on in GMX land. But as I said, there's every week there are new protocols building on what GMX offers. So it's not always easy to keep up, but that also makes it for a very inspiring and industrious space where there's constantly new things coming up and teams of builders pushing us to consider new improvements and how the end product might look months or years down the line. And I think being able to exchange ideas with these groups of builders is has been a really fruitful process. I think it pushes us all to be even better and to put the bar even higher.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to come in and join us, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys all things GMX and Arbitrum, and I'm looking forward to hosting you guys up again, and hopefully have some people building on Arbitrum in general. Sort of have like a pretty big Arbitrum type space where we have people building on GMX, building on Aura, and things of that nature, or Arcadium, whatever protocol that's kind of gaining some traction. Those are just a few of the platforms that I like. Same thing with DopeX. And yeah, man, I want to thank Frediger. I want to thank Jonesy for all these guys on Twitter. you can catch a replay of this on our YouTube. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I look forward to connecting with you guys off of Twitter relatively soon, and also having you guys up on our spaces within the next month or so. And yeah, looking forward to our next Arbitrum discussion. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Snorlax and Max for a market check. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for hosting us, and hopefully next month V2 will be something we can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be with you, Wabi, and we'll have a lot to talk about with everything that's coming up in the month or two ahead. So yeah, definitely look forward to reconnecting with you. Thanks a lot for the invitations.
No problem, brother. Later.
That was a great space, man. Shout out to Wabi and the GMX guys. Do we want to create a new space, Max, for this, or do we want to run it all as one?
I think we can probably create a new space and cut off the recording here. I think that would probably make the most sense, just because the topic is going to change so much.
I think so. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and wrap this one up then real quick. Just one more shout out to the GMX and to King Wabi. Big appreciation to you guys for coming on, and definitely make sure to tune into Crypto World Radio in the future for more alpha on all the happenings that are happening in crypto. But yeah, we can go ahead and start the new space, Z.
Great to be with you guys. Catch you next time.